Hi, this is Steve. Welcome back to my channel, Scale Model Kit Review. In this installment of the DeAgostini Collectibles, I build Pack 10 of the Volkswagen T1 Samba bus. Now in Pack 10, I do stages 43 through 47. Now, if you haven't done so already, head over to DeAgostini Collectibles and subscribe to this bus today. It's a fantastic build and I'm really enjoying this. So without further ado, let's get started. This is what we received in Pack 10 for the Volkswagen T1 Samba Camper bus, stages 43 through 47. Now for stage 43, we'll look at the magazine here real quick. And wonderful magazine here, semi-gloss pages, ranges from 12 to 13 pages front to back. A lot of research was done by DeAgostini Collectibles in this. Our first article, Events for Buses, and that reminds me of way back in the day when I was in the Air Force and I was out in California teaching Channel Islands Air National Guard Base there. I went to a Volkswagen bus event in Orange County, and I was just amazed at all the buses they had there. I mean, they had a few buses that were the very first buses ever made by Volkswagen, and they were just beautiful, fantastic. I was just floored. And you know, same thing too, it's a great place to pick up parts for your bus, for your project, and it's an ongoing event today. I mean, they continually have huge Volkswagen events out in California, as well as other states, Oregon, Washington, Utah, you know, all over the country. And this, for example, shows some of the events in Europe. So wonderful article there, and it's a great read. And then they give us the step-by-step instructions for assembling the engine. So the way this has been going is we normally will receive the parts in this issue, but we won't actually build them until the next stage. So we're actually going to assemble what we received in stage 42. Okay, so these are the 42 parts here in the diagram. Wonderful to see the diagram here. It's not offered in other builds that I've been doing. But step by step, color, great illustrations here. I mean, very easy to follow. And there you have it. So I'm not going to show you the other magazines. You'll have to subscribe to this yourself. And these are wonderful magazines as well as a wonderful kit to build. So let's look at the parts. This is stage 43. We received parts for the engine support. Stage 44, we received parts for the cylinder cooling tins and fan housing. Stage 45. The parts here we got are the carburetor, intake manifold, generator, and pump. Stage 46. More engine parts here, of course. Spark plugs and ignition coil. And lastly, stage 47, the rear central part of the chassis. So let's go ahead and get started on stage 43. I'll be right back. And I'm back. So before I begin with 43, I pulled out the parts that we had put aside from Pack 9. And of course we have some screws here, bags of screws, lower cylinders, some of the cylinder tins, heater boxes is what those are, and valve cover. These are cool, the valve cover arms that lock the valve covers on. And just curious, first off, I'd like to thank all of you who support my channel and have been with me from the very beginning when I started building these park work kits. You know, I do realize I don't get as many hits and I don't get as many views as I would if I built a regular model kit or if I painted a figure. But I do this for you so you can see how well these kits go together and how nice they are. They're really impressive when they're built up. So once again, thank you again for all who support my channel. If you haven't done so already, head over to DeAgostini Collectibles and check out this build. It's readily available here in the US, and let me tell you, to have a 1/6 scale or 1/8 scale Volkswagen bus displayed in your office or at home it's enormous. It's a big kit, and it's very impressive. Anyway, also, I would like to get your feedback a little bit here. And how many of you actually have a Volkswagen? Do you have a bus, or do you have a bug? Like myself, I have a 72 VW Beetle, and I've had it ever since I was a teenager. I taught my wife how to drive it, and I've had it in the family for a long time. I did a full restoration on it back in 1991, and it needs another one. I'm going to hand it down to one of my daughters. But anyway, let me know in the comments below if you actually own a Volkswagen. Give me some details about it. If you want to share links to pictures of your Volkswagen, whether it be a bus or a bug or a Type 4, a sedan, Type 3, you know, put them in there. I'd like to know. I'd like to get some feedback from you all on this. So let's go ahead and put these parts aside. Let's look at the build instructions for this. So we received the parts for the engine support, but then we're going to start assembling those parts I just showed you. And here's those parts I just showed you. And we're just going to start assembling this. I'm really looking forward to this. This should be a lot of fun building this engine. And I believe this engine was only like a 40 horse engine, but I'm not really sure what they put in the buses, but I'm pretty sure it's just a 40 horse. My Volkswagen stock was 60 horses, but then I went to about 105 horses with an 1835cc. So these were, my memory gets me 1200 cc's, I believe. Okay, let me get the parts and I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 43. I'll take them out, we'll get a closer look. Here's a close-up of those parts. The screws we received are the BP04 and the BP09. Received the tube here. Not sure exactly what the tube here is for, but we'll see when we assemble that. And this is the bottom part of the engine, made of plastic. Very familiar with that. That's where your crankshaft pulley goes down into, and that would be the top, and that would be from underneath. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we do is we install this on these two holes here and match up, making sure that these two large holes are going to be towards the front or the back of the engine, and that's what that looks like there. And you can see your windage tubes for the push rods. Very nice. And we don't put any screws in that, it just kind of goes together. I'll put that aside. Next we'll install the exhaust pipes, and they are marked so you won't get confused. Right here where we're going to put the pipe in, there's an L, and on the pipe itself there's also an L. Right there. You can just see it. Okay, so it's going to insert. There's a keyway, it only goes in one way. And we need to put a BP08 screw into this. That's good there. That's how that looks. Same with the other side, the right side. BP08 goes into this. And that's tight there. That looks great. And there's both of them together. Next, I bring over the bottom of the engine block, and we're going to install these tins. Turn this around, and actually it's going to stay just like that. Turn it over, and we're going to put the right one on, and that's going to fit into those slots right there. You can see from the bottom. And I'm going to put in one BP06 screw. Okay, not too tight. And we put another one over here. So we put in two actually. And just till it's snug. Good. That's good there. Next we'll put the next one in. Same thing, it's going to insert just like the other one. And two BP06 screws go into that. Here's the first one. And that's good there. That's how that looks. Looks great. So these are for the heaters, right? We used the heat of the engine creates the heat, and then that's transferred from the fan shroud and generator has a like a fan on it in the fan shroud, and that directs the hot air inside the cab of the Volkswagen. Next, I install the valve cover clips, and they're going to insert into those holes there, like that. So I'll press that in as far as it will go. There we go. And that's how they look there. And that's all we do with stage 43. Let's go ahead and get started on stage 44. Let's look at the build instructions for stage 44. Stage 44, we receive the parts for the cylinder cooling tins and fan housing. And that's what they look like there. But we're actually going to assemble the bottom of the engine support. And there's the bottom of the engine support. We're going to install that tube. And then we're going to install that whole lower end of the engine. Continue with some parts we received with this issue, and looks pretty good there. And lastly, secure all that down with some screws, and that's what we should have. So let me get the parts out and I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 44. I'll go ahead and take these out. We'll get a closer look. Here's a close-up of those parts. The screws we received is the BP03 and the BP04. These are all plastic. This is the top cooling tins here, and the fan shroud. And you know, I said before we won't actually assemble this till the next stage, but no, that's not true. We're going to assemble these on this stage along with the other parts we received from the previous stage. Here's that tube. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to install this tube, and that's going to be installed from the bottom side. And there's a couple of tabs that this lines up to, and we're just going to insert it onto the tabs. Next, we'll bring over the engine that we assembled in the previous stage, and we're going to line it up with the bottom of the engine support with these two supports right here, and it's basically going to line up just like that. Okay. Two BP04 screws go into this. One right there. And just snug, that's good. And that's how that looks there. Now we'll bring over the fan shroud. And we're going to take the fan shroud and we're going to insert it into these points right here, just like that. So the BP04 screws going in first. And just till it's snug, that's good. And that's how that looks. Now the tube goes in, and I should have put that in the previous stage, but it's gonna get inserted just like that. There's an alignment pin for it. Flip this over. BP03 screw goes into that. And there you go. That's how that looks. So that completes stage 44. Let's go ahead and get started on stage 45. Welcome back. Let's look at the build instructions for stage 45. This time we received the parts for the carburetor, intake manifold, generator, and pump. Lots of small components there, lots of pieces and parts. Very cool there. And shows us the assembly diagram for that. And we start with the intake manifold for the carburetor. And then the generator base support. Carburetor itself. Looks like the throttle linkage goes on next. The generator itself. The distributor and wires. And where we put those wires. Very cool. I'm impressed with that so far. Let me get the parts and I'll be right back. Here's parts pack for stage 45. I'll take these out and we'll get a closer look. And here they are, very cool. We have the intake manifold. It's made of plastic. Carburetor. Usually it was a Solex carburetor. Throttle linkage. Generator pulley. Generator housing. Generator base. Fuel pump. Distributor, fan belt, looks like the oil drain for the bottom of the engine, another pulley, and I'm not sure what that is. We'll see though. We also received BP03 screws, BP04, and BP10. Go ahead and install the intake manifold onto the top of the engine here, and that's simply just going to key in to that large slot right there in the middle, just like that. And that's how that looks. We're going to put a BP04 screw into this on the other side. And looks good there. Next, I'm going to install the generator base, and that slots in right beside it there into that little elbow looking device, and looks like it just press fits. There we go. It's normally held down with 4 bolts. Very cool. Here's your oil filler cap. That's nice. Next, assemble the carburetor. We're going to put the carburetor on top, and we're going to make sure that the vacuum advance for the carb is on the left side of the engine there, or the right side of the engine. And it's going to go down on top, just like that. Next, we're going to install the throttle linkage, and it's going to go into, it's a half moon hookup right there on the fan shroud. There's one right there, half moon. We'll put that in first. And see if I can use some. There we go. And then the other one just fell in place. Next, we're going to assemble the generator. And these two parts of the pulley go together. There's a tab to line it up. And then it will insert into the front of the generator. It only goes in one way. Now our fuel pump goes in next, and it's going to go in right in front of the intake manifold here, support. This is a mechanical fuel pump. And inserts into that. I think I'm going to super glue it because it is loose. Cocktail stick or toothpick, and put it right there. Now I'll press the fuel pump down. That's how that looks. Hoses, the fuel hoses, and we're going to insert those into the fan shroud. I'm going to put a little glue on them. Just like that. And that's how that looks. Okay, and that completes stage 45. Let's go ahead and get started on stage 46. I'll be right back. Let's look at the build instructions for stage 46. This time we received parts for the engine, more parts of course. And it looks like we received the coil wires, and spark plug wires. Here's the assembly diagram for that. So we start off by installing the distributor, and it looks like it's a vacuum advanced type distributor. And then we install the crankshaft pulley, and that's what that plate is used for. I didn't know what it was, so it's just a kit part. It's not specific to the Volkswagen. And then we put on the fan belt. Then we insert the top of the engine to the bottom of the engine. Then we put the oil screen access and drain tube. That's what this is. And screw that down. And then we put on our, looks like our drain for the fuel pump overflow. And that is it. Let me get the parts and I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 46. Very nice. Let me take these out. We'll get a closer look. Here's a close-up of those parts. And the coil. And that looks very nice there. Along with spark plug wires. And I'm not sure what that is, but I'll tell you what it is when we install it. Another tube, and part of the engine mount or frame area. BPO4 screws. Okay, so I brought over the top of the engine. We're going to go ahead and install the distributor, and it's going to go, it only goes in one way. It's kind of oblong shaped. Bring over the distributor, and it's going to go in that little hole right there. It only goes in one way, and we're going to slide that in just like that. Now we'll bring over the crankshaft pulley. That's going to get mounted here. We're going to go in from underneath, and we're going to put that plate on there. This plate that we received in the previous issue. And you can see the edge here will have to line up. Just like that. 2 BPO3 screws go into this. And that's snug. That looks good. And a BP10 screw goes into that. It's a flange screw. Holds all that together. And that's how that looks. Bring over the engine, and it's going to slide in one way. Just like that. Now I'll go ahead and put the belt on, and that's going to go on the bottom here and up through the top. And that's how that looks. It looks great. Next, I'll go ahead and bring over the bottom of the engine. We're going to mount this to the top of the engine to the bottom and line up everything here. And that looks great. Going to bring over our oil strainer and drain plug, and that's going to mount to the bottom. There's a keyway that goes in like that. We're going to put a BPO4 screw into this from the top on the back there, and that's going to hold everything together. That's secure, and that's pretty much that part of the engine complete. Now we take, coming off our fuel pump, I think this is like a drain. It's going to go off right there and get secured down just like that. And that's cool. If you wanted to put some super glue down there, you can, which I'm going to go ahead and do. That's just going to keep it from coming out later. And that's all we do for stage 46. Wow. We're almost done with this. We got a few more components we got to put on it. So let's head over and do stage 47. Welcome back. Let's look at the build instructions for the final stage for Pack 10, stage 47. And finally, we received parts of the chassis and the assembly of the final engine parts. And you can see we're going to put the spark plug wires on, the coil, voltage regulator, and some fuel lines. Here's all those parts we received from the previous stage. We're going to go ahead and install those. We're going to put that backing plate on, work on the distributor cap and wires, plug them into the spark plug areas, run the fuel line, coil, voltage regulator, vacuum advance canister on the side of the distributor, And that will be it. Let me get the parts and I'll be right back. And here's the parts for stage 47. Let me take this out and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm not going to take this out right now. I'm going to leave it in there because we're actually not going to use this in this stage. We're going to continue working on the engine. All right, next we're going to put on this little backing plate, and it's going to snap down into those two smaller holes on the back side. And we want to make sure that the part that there's nothing showing is going to be on the back side. So we'll snap that down. There we go. That's how that looks there. Now we'll bring over the distributor and wires, and they want us to feed it behind the carburetor and the carburetor base, behind the generator. So the generator base. So we're going to feed the wires back there behind. Okay. There we go. And okay, so once the harness is installed, we're going to plug in this part of the wire support into the fan shroud on the right side here. There's a hole for it. And then we're going to put our cap on the distributor. So I ran and I showed you that earlier, I ran the spark plug wires behind the carburetor and the generator, and then one wire loom plugged in right there. I used some super glue. The other one plugged in right back here behind the carburetor. The other one plugged in on the right side of the fan shroud. The distributor cap plugged on, and then I installed the spark plugs on both sides. Next, install the fuel line onto the side of the carburetor, and it's going to go in a hole on the side of the fan shroud and then onto the carburetor itself. Just like that. And you can see where it is. And it plugs in to the fan shroud right down there and on the side of the carb. Next we install the coil, and that's just going to plug in just like that, just like the real thing, upside down. And I want to route the voltage regulator behind the carburetor, so we'll run that through. Perfect. And we're going to route the coil on top of the fan shroud. Only goes in one way. BPO 4 screw goes into this. That's good there. And then we'll take the coil. I'm going to push that down on top of the generator. Perfect. And then this is going to route on the other side. Right there. And that's how that all looks. One more component needs to go on and we'll be done with the engine. And now we'll bring over the vacuum advance canister. And that's going to mount to the side of the distributor. Just like that. Just press fits in. And then it goes into the side of the carburetor. I'm going to put some glue on it. A little bit of super glue. And there it is. And there you go. We are done with that engine. And there you go. We are done with the engine so far. I think it looks great. Here's the back side of it. What it looks like from the top. Very nice. We have a few more components, I'm sure. We have the oil bath filter for the carburetor and some other small items, but looks good. And that's all we do for stage 47. And of course that was the final stage for pack 10. So that completes pack 10. This was a lot of fun to build, a little bit of a challenge when coming to do the spark plug wires, a little confusing with the instructions, but that's how that finally turned out, and I'm pleased with it. It's a lot of fun. It really looks like the 40 horsepower Volkswagen engine, 4-cylinder VW motor. Head over to DeAgostini Collectibles and subscribe to this bus today. Get it while you can, because I'm sure it won't be available for too much longer, and you just never know what the future brings with all these kits, so get it while you can. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for your support. Happy modeling, everybody, and take care.